So we're going to go through each of those individually. We'll start with respiration. And amphibians are interesting because they have 4 different types of gas exchange depending on their life cycle. So the 4 different types of gas exchange that they utilize are direct diffusion, gills, their skin respire through the skin, and then they also use lungs. Okay, and I think you know enough about the life cycle where you could, I put a little graph there, you could fill in which one was which, right? So what stage do they have direct diffusion into the cells? Eggs, right. What stage do they use gills?
Aquatic larva.
Aquatic larva, right? So a tadpole or a salamander larva. At what stage do they use skin respiration?
Aquatic and terrestrial.
Right, so both. They can, I mean, it is different. They all have many species have different life cycles, but yes. And then at what stage do they use lungs?
Terrestrial.
Terrestrial, right. So they use cutaneous respiration as larvae and as adults, but lungs and gills are separate. Okay, so just thinking about gas exchange in general, what are some factors, and I want you to talk to your neighbor about this first. So wherever you're sitting next to, think of 2 or 3 factors that would affect how well or how poorly gas would exchange through a medium. So I'll give you 30 seconds to come up with a few. Okay, so like you guys came up with a few. What are some that you guys thought of?
Climate change.
Okay, climate change. You're thinking way bigger than I see. So how about at the individual level?
I was thinking the area, the thickness of it.
Okay, area and thickness. Yeah, Will.
The flow of oxygenated water over the individual.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. So that has to do with concentration of oxygen in the there. Yeah, Devin.
How they retain water, so if they use their glandular secretions and put that over their body, that's going to create a barrier between their skin and respiration.
Right. So that has to do with thickness and also with how well. So water helps dissolve gases better. Yeah. Good. Yeah.
The temperature of the environment that that affects
Yes.
exchange, and then like maybe the polarity of the surface that it's exchanging through.
Yeah, that will both affect it. So if you have like a lipid layer as opposed to a hydrophilic layer, those are both affected. Yes. Okay, how porous it is? Yeah, so if you have, like, our skin is impermeable to most gases, right? So, yeah.
The concentration gradient.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so how much oxygen is in one area to another. Okay, you guys hit most, if not all of them. So, we're going to talk about the heart. Okay, so we're going to draw this out together. Okay, and this kind of relates to this does relate, of course, to what we're talking about before with respiration. And I give you a list of things to draw or to include on a drawing, and I want you guys to just draw with me. So this is the figure that I was on the PowerPoint. It's from your book. We're going to draw something similar but a little more basic. So we're going to draw 2 hearts. Give yourself some space. And we're going to draw some lungs. These are lungs above the heart. Okay, so draw lungs above, and then draw your heart below, okay? And we're going to draw another one over here. So amphibians, this is an adult amphibian heart. They basically have 2 pathways that they can rely on depending on whether they are in the water or out on land, basically when they're holding their breath or when they're not, okay? And so their heart reflects that ability. How many chambers does a frog heart have? 3, okay, or I should say amphibian heart. And there are, so this is, remember anatomically you have to Just kind of switch things around. This is the right atrium. This is our left atrium. And it only has one ventricle. And the ventricle has this spongy muscle here, which prevents the mixing of deoxygenated and oxygenated blood. They're going to run right next to each other, which I'll show in a second. But they, for the most part, stay separate because of the spongy muscle. Okay. Within the atria, you have different inputs, okay? And you have a separation. Okay, in the left atrium, you have what's called the interatrial septum. Okay, and you have blood coming from the lungs, from the pulmonary vein, and then you have the systemic veins. Okay, so this is coming from the rest of the body, the muscles, the organs, and the skin as well. Okay, in the right atrium, you don't have a septum. Instead, you have this kind of flat thing. This is called the spiral valve. Okay, and again, you have two outputs. So you have on this side the pulmonary artery, and on this side the systemic artery. Okay, did I get everything on your list? Okay, I think I did. All right, so on land, so let's say we'll draw this one first. On land, what is this frog going to be doing with its respiration? Just ignore this and just answer the question. So there's a frog on land, what's he using?
Lungs.
Okay, good. All right, he's using his lungs. Okay, so that means the lungs are going to have lots of oxygenated blood. Okay, this is blood flow. And you want all that oxygenated blood to go to the organs and the system, so it's going to just go on the outside like that. So this is oxygenated blood coming from the lungs and then getting pumped out to the vital organs, everything else it needs. Okay, the systemic veins, those are the ones that just used up all the oxygen, so now they have deoxygenated blood. And it's just going to stay on this inside track. And we want to oxygenate that blood, so it's going to be sent back to the lungs. Okay, and this is pretty similar to a mammalian heart, except there is some mixing which occurs between those two sources of blood. All right, on this heart, I'm not going to label everything. But if you're in the water, what is the frog going to be doing with its respiration? All right, it's just going to be using its, it's an adult, so it doesn't have gills. Yeah, it's going to be using its skin only. And so if you send blood to the lungs, it's going to take oxygen away that it's not going to have any oxygen in there. So it's not going to be helpful to use the lungs at all. So it has a system here then to reduce blood flow to the lungs and instead just circulate it through the system, which also goes to the skin, and just get the oxygen it can from the skin. So this spiral valve, okay, covers up the pulmonary artery and reduces blood flow to, a mere trickle or almost nothing. And so instead, it's not going to be very oxygenated, but this blood coming from the system is going to just bypass the lungs and circulate just through the system and get what it can from the skin. But yeah, so that's the amphibian heart, and that's how it changes between the two methods depending on whether it's going to be in the water, not using its lung, just using the skin, or on the land. Okay, if we relate this back to BD, if you have a thicker skin and you're going to be diving and you're going to be using this circulation, you're going to be getting less oxygen. So it's going to be even harder to oxygenate yourself while swimming or while in the water. And so you're going to have to use this more. You're going to have to stay out on the land more. And all those things we talked about before are going to be a problem. You're going to be exposed to air. You're not going to be able to control your body temperature as much. And ultimately, that's what has been so devastating to amphibian populations.